if you have to give one advice to someone who is listening to you and they are thinking about building their own next healthcare product, based on your experience, what that advice would be?
Great question. I would say fall in love with the problem and not the solution.
Very powerful.
It works well for me and it works well for our team. And you constantly have to remind yourself of that because you just fall in love with building a solution so easily. But when you start to get into the customer's eyes and you start to get into what's wrong with the problem you're trying to solve is, you get more clarity. It's something that can be said, but experiencing that is a little different. But that's 100% where I would leave that.
Welcome to the Convergence Play podcast.
It seems like it's your birthday today, right?
It is. How'd you know?
I'm sure you're having a good day so far.
This is part of that good day. Honestly, I'm excited. So this adds to the excitement. Thank you for the wishes. I appreciate it.
No problem at all. Thank you so much for joining. I was really looking forward to it because not every day we get to talk to someone who is so much passionate about what they are doing. So I think why not we get started from there, and for our listeners, let's start with your journey, why you are passionate about Auth Hero and what exactly this platform does.
Yeah, great start. So to start, my name is Yianni Yiannakou. I'm a physician assistant by trade. I practice in California, and specifically I'm specialized in occupational medicine. And just so if the listener isn't aware, because not many people tend to be aware, occupational medicine is, I am not a primary care provider. I don't treat high blood pressure, diabetes, so much as if you got injured at work or were exposed to some chemical or tripped and fell or fall off a roof, whatever it is, I'm your provider. And occupational medicine is a bit of a niche because we work with your employer, we work with your insurer, we work with your specialists and everything like that. It's just a little different from primary care in that my scope of practice only really includes work-related injuries and exposures. And that's probably the best place to start. But the truth is, I went straight into occupational medicine as a PA. It's something I'm very passionate about. It's, helping the working class people, And with that, I found myself in a system that I didn't expect, and I saw my patients spinning their tires in a system. Some of these patients really needed surgery quickly. Some of these patients needed an MRI quickly. The care plan, getting them back to work, everything held on not so much the clinical expertise and, watching their back from a clinical perspective, but then there was this whole different monster that was under the surface. And that was just this administrative process that just everyone is aware of in healthcare. It's just a little bit worse in workers' compensation or occupational medicine. And I saw staff just spinning their tires, crying on breaks, just overwhelmed with not only providing the clinical help during the day, we only have 8 hours to work per day, but really there was this administrative load that constantly they couldn't get out from under. And I felt it. I felt it with my patients. I felt it with the staff, the office managers, the owners of the clinics. And I started to hypothesize something. And I thought of a solution. And it was just a whisper at the time. And I was working full time. But really, I spent some time kind of figuring out a plan of, is this like a real solution or is this just a figment of my imagination? And lo and behold, my hand was forced. It was no longer this thing that I was working on the side. I actually got quite sick and I developed something called Crohn's disease and I had to stop working. And because I had to stop working, I lost my career, I lost my job and everything because I had to handle my own clinical problems. And what I found was I had a little more time on my hands and I lost my scope of practice, but it became sort of an opportunity. It was an opportunity to try something new. It was an opportunity to help people in different ways. And I spent a full year kind of thinking about it before I even launched a company to build a solution for the problem in healthcare.
Great. And thank you. Thank you for sharing this story. And it is, again, very touching. And I think you are, as you mentioned, it's a very niche area, very specific area where we are trying to stakeholder documentation process, right? So in which different stakeholders, payers, and
Mhm.
this, and in this way, I think they will be able to save a lot of time. There will be a lot of documentation available one place. There will be traceability. There will be accountability. So it's really a niche area, and it's a very unique
Yeah.
to solve. And thank you for thinking about it. I'm sure it's going to help a lot of people saving their time and says.
Yeah, and that's what you find with healthcare, man, is it's not that there's a lack of people who care. It's just the way in which we organize this system is not right. And healthcare's problem is truly just organizational. And when you look at the stats too, and that's what I did when I first started to hypothesize this, is I started to look at the stats. Is this problem I see an actual problem, or am I just part of a microcosm where it exists? And what I found, just spending an entire year saying, can I validate that this is real?
As far as I understand, Auth Hero is right now purely for California healthcare system, right? Do you have plan to integrate other states and because I'm sure there comes different regulations, there comes different rules with respect to different states.
Mhm.
So, what is your vision for expansion? How are you looking at this in terms of states or integrating other states?
Yeah, good question. So, you introduced Auth Hero very well. Auth Hero is essentially a shared workspace that's HIPAA compliant, and it takes over. And the way I best describe it is you have all of these systems that a clinic is using. You have all of these systems that an employer is using, HR, the insurance companies, the attorneys, even the patient. Okay. And what you find is that all of the systems of just the clinic are not integrated. So you have an EMR, electronic medical record, you have email, you have fax, you have billing, you have practice management software, and none of them integrate. So everything within an institution is siloed. And then you go out to the insurance company, you find they're doing the same thing, and those systems don't integrate with what the clinic is doing. You have email and fax being able to coordinate thousands and thousands of cases a day, and then the only really solution right now is to throw manpower at the problem. The technology we have in healthcare, whether we have it or not, and in my opinion, we don't have it, and it's being developed right now, what I'm doing is creating a shared workspace where the clinic can integrate all of those programs, create a cerebral cortex that is Auth Hero, and then that workflow pairs with the insurance, pairs with the attorney, pairs with the patient, so that everybody's pain points in their workflows that are completely regulatory defined are being solved. And it's not just a situation of solving the clinic or the insurance in this, but we're starting with the clinic because we feel they're the hub for getting to the patient, the insurer, the attorney, and creating a network. And what we're doing is we're creating that infrastructure right now. We're starting in California. And the way I like to say Auth Hero is kind of structured, and the way I like to say healthcare IT is structured, is you have those regulatory workflows being defined by the government and statewide, federal wide, county-wide, and so. And then you have the technology itself. And when you build something with that in mind, Auth Hero is built with those two skeletons that kind of just click together. And when we have the technology and the automated workflows, all we do when we hop to a state, another state, is we replace that regulatory structure, and then we pair it with the automations. And with California being the most complex regulatory environment with the most complex players and risk and compliancy and all of that, we're starting with our beachhead clinic. And we're starting there because if we accomplish it in California, it's easy thereon to replace that administrative skeleton with another states. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, got it. So as I understand, Hero is basically an overlay on top of EMRs and billing systems and all other entities. So how do they integrate with Auth Hero? Is there any API integrations, or if you talk a little bit about technicalities, I think that would be great.
Yeah, if you're anything like me, you love APIs. There should be backups, webhooks, this and that, just in the event that you can't API. And not every API is as friendly as the next. When you're dealing with large institutions or small institutions, the government standardized a few things. The Fire APIs are the go-to, right? And it's that emerging technology that's really going to take healthcare into the next level.
From
And when you look at, sorry?
HR7 to Fire, now everyone is transitioning to Fire, and I think it's great. It's going to
Yeah.
help a lot. So how does your pricing model right now looks like? I mean, if, for example, if someone from worker comp clinic want to use it, how does it price out for them?
Very good question. So we just entered market December 1st. We're going to start with our pilots. And with that, that's the whole question we have to answer. We start with a pre-market price, an under market value price of what we think Auth Hero was worth. But we have to objectively define that value with the customer. And when we get through the unit economics and when we get through all of the experiments we're going to do with our pilot, we are able to better define that. Now, as I hypothesize that value, I can say it's worth $750 a month or $10,000 a month or whatever, but it doesn't have that objective evidence to support it. So I want to start with that. Now, when I look at where I want Auth Hero to go, I want it to purely go for usage-based fees. Okay. And that's where I see a lot of the SaaS products going in time. And there's a reason. When you look at APIs, for example, some companies like Epic might offer it for free. Some other EMR systems might say we want 0.005 cents per call. Well, then that's a different type of usage-based statistic that you're going to have to run based on the EMR you're connecting with for that specific customer. In our case, it would be a clinic.
Sounds great. So how big is your team right now? The team who built this platform, and I'm sure once more and more clients are onboarding the system, do you feel that you have the enough workforce and manpower to support your growth?
100%. 100%. And that's what I've done for the last 2 years. And this has been a 2-year endeavor for me. Even though we licensed and started building in April of 2025, I've really put together a good culture, a good team. I would say that we are currently the leanest we've ever been, which is great. We want that. I have a CTO, a CPO. I have 3 devs, back end, full stack, front end. We have part-time, but mostly full-time devs. So we are pretty much pilot ready. Our product is hit its MVP, and we've reached that point where we're at the Goldilocks zone right now, where we have to let the market and the pressure decide if we're big enough. And if we are not big enough, we can expand. And I've created pipelines for more devs, and I'm reaching into Monash University. That's pretty much like the Harvard of Australia, and I have found very good talent out of that institution. They're spread across several countries as well. They have satellite institutions, and I can't say enough. I have found completely. I have found people who are family now out of there too, and I want to say that too. Like, we've developed a really good culture, and we're all quite excited for what we're doing here because it's different.
That's great. I mean, if you find like-minded people working with you, and then this whole experience becomes really enjoyable.
Yeah,
And
100%.
I'm glad you have the like-minded team, because of course, once you grow, and all of us uh, stay up at night because of the scalability challenges. So once you are getting more and more traffic, then definitely team like that will, because they know the system, they believe in it. The most important thing is that if your
100%.
team believes in the mission of the product, then don't count hours; they actually count the impact and value. So I'm really
100%. It's so
you have
true.
that
It's so
kind of
true.
team. So on
Yeah.
the same front, what are you thinking in terms of scalability challenges for you? Like, I'm sure you must be using modern cloud technologies and must be on the latest and greatest tech stack. But is there anything that is keeping you up at night in terms of scalability? For example, a lot of clients are onboarded. All of a sudden, you have an influx of onboarding. Do you feel that your technology infrastructure is up to the mark to deal that scalability?
Yeah. So when we're thinking pilots, yes. When we're thinking early innovators, early customers, yes. When we start to get to the point of enterprise grade contracts, no. I would like to start the Kubernetes and all of that and kind of scale the system. But we are good now. And we are waiting for the market and where we are at to say yes to moving forward with our scalability. But yes, we are cloud-based and all of that, as most companies are. And it makes it easier, but blockers come in a lot of different shapes and sizes. I would say that the biggest blocker for us right now is psychology. There's a addiction in healthcare to old school and legacy systems, and we are already surviving the way we're doing things, but they don't actually have the tools to be able to say with good optics that there is better, and that there is a easier way to say, I'm going to automate a lot of the processes that are redundant and we're throwing manpower at. It's working, yes, and it's not ideal, but we're running our business, and then that's the customer side things. So there's timing, there's regulatory, there's compliance based, there's risk based. There's a lot of different types of blockers that you run into in health tech that you don't essentially foresee until you get into the field. And you have to navigate those with experimentation. This should be a scientific process to draw that information out of your customers, even your own team, and figure out how to move forward with that. And there always will be blockers, no matter what sector you're in, and there'll be some that go into other sectors and such. But you have to be very intentional about how you tackle your blockers. They shouldn't be assumptions. They should be testable things.
You, I think, 100% rightly pointed out about the legacy systems in healthcare. I think fintech and healthcare, there are a lot of legacy systems in both because there is always hesitation of upgrading to the latest technology stack because if things are working fine, and we can understand because there are repercussions if anything does not go as planned. Then of course there are financial repercussions here. You have huge repercussions in terms of people's care and life. So yeah, understood. But of course, especially in terms of security, I think it is important that if everyone should think about using the latest technology stack. And I was really, when going through Auth Hero, and I saw that you guys are HIPAA compliance. That's a big relief, I'm sure, for your customers as well, because all the clinics who will be using your platform, I think it will be helping them, if not, but to some extent, being audit ready in terms of documentation as well. So a lot of their documentation will be in very good presentable format, as far as I'm understanding. So it can be another plus for clinics to go and start using it, and because it will help them with putting everything in a good, secure, presentable, and trackable way.
Yeah, the way I like to, it's the first question that comes up with any customer is it HIPAA compliant? Is it secure? It's one of their biggest fears, is adopting something that isn't secure. The nice thing is, with a little education, they find confidence, because HIPAA compliancy is not that hard to do. It's expensive, it's tedious, but all of the directions on how to become HIPAA compliant are open source. Right? With cloud-based services through Azure, through AWS, whatever, you can really guard your PHI easily. Like not even your devs should have access to PHI, right? And that's easy to do when you're using Fire databases and this and that, when you're utilizing services through these cloud-based things. But what they don't realize is that the services they're already using are not quite the best with HIPAA compliancy. And when you grade a lot of these EMRs on compliance, on security, on, having their certifications, what you find is a lot of them don't do very well. You have your big players like Epic, who are going to be gold standard, right? I'm not necessarily saying Epic is the best of the best, but it is the best that we have. Okay. I think it has a lot of room for improvement, but it is the best that we have. When it comes to some of the lower level EMRs that are going to be, more of value to your smaller to mid-sized institutions, what you find is all of the certifications are open source on whether they've gone through them or not. And even the EMRs I use within clinic are very, very lax on what is HIPAA compliancy. So they have to have cybersecurity insurance, whether they're using Auth Hero or not. And they should be, because the reason I'm overlaying on top of that is to create a better secure compliance, lower risk profile for these clinics, because it doesn't matter the tool that they're using. I will help them with the security, the automated compliance, and the auditable tracking. And if you were to ask a clinic owner, like, are these things really HIPAA compliant? They just assume. They just assume. But when the conversation about adopting something new happens and something innovative, they don't assume.
I think it's also a shared responsibility model. Like, yes, Auth Hero is doing everything they can with respect to HIPAA compliance, but if some other system which they are using, if security not so good on that end, then of course, I think you can do a certain level of education for them about having the importance of security and HIPAA compliance and all that. But I'm sure you have good control over documentation part. But if any underlying system that is integrated with Auth Zero that's not so great on security standards, then of course this whole model will security posture for whole system will be definitely
Yes.
not. So I think as part of your onboarding with clients, I think one thing that might come up is you have to spend some time educating them on this shared responsibility model. That yes, Auth Hero is good, but you have to take a look at other components yourself and make sure they are also at the same standard.
Yes. Yes. And that's the thing. It's a conversation, and it needs to be a conversation. I can talk about what they're using as messaging services, what they're using as practice billing software, but it really is a conversation. And when we onboard a clinic, we have a protocol where we actually go into that and make sure that we're not onboarding an EMR that is completely a hole in HIPAA security, because that doesn't do good for anybody. That doesn't do good for our pilot. That doesn't pilot statistics. It doesn't do any good for our pilot KPIs if we can't solve some other program's problem. Right?
Yeah.
We are meant to strengthen. We're not meant to solve other programs' problems. And that's kind of the thing in SaaS is like, everybody has a tool these days with AI and this and that. And AI is a huge push. I love it. But the truth is, everyone's building tools for AI and no one's really thinking about infrastructure. And when we're developing something like Auth Hero, we're not just developing an automation tool and this and that, messaging tool, a timeline tool, a document repository that's HIPAA compliant and everything is case specific and this and that. Like, we can talk about our features. But in reality, at a core fundamental level, we are building infrastructure. And then once you build infrastructure, this new overlaying layer that is Auth Hero is our argument. That's when you can start to bring in tools. And we've started in the opposite way. And what we have seen is there's billions and trillions of dollars being pumped into AI, and especially in healthcare. And what you find is, like, companies like Microsoft are like, it's not ready, it's not ready, it's not ready. And it's not ready because you haven't built the infrastructure for it. You're not feeding it the right data. And because there's no infrastructure for it, and you're only solving the problem for one of these stakeholders, the clinic, the insurer, the patient, the diagnostician, the radiologist, you have to think of healthcare as an ecosystem and with infrastructure. And when you're in the business of infrastructure, you're thinking of the system as an ecosystem. So you're not solving one little sliver of a pain point. You're going to start by building the foundation to solve everyone's workflow pain points.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And on the same side, when you were mentioning about onboarding clinic, so how does a typical onboarding timeline right now looks for Auth Hero? Like, if you have to onboard a new clinic, how much time does it take and efforts?
Very good question. Yeah. So very good question. It's very low effort with our pilot, right? It's a relationship, a personal relationship with the pilot. I would be on site. I would be, looking up their business identification, getting IDs, and we've built ID Me into our system. Are you familiar with ID Me?
No, if you can please explain
Yeah,
that.
100%. So when you're logging into EDD, the disability, or when you're laid off from work, or you're a government official, what you do is you go through this third party called ID.me, and it verifies your identity, it verifies your license, it verifies your face, and all of these things. It knows where you're employed, and it's this service that the government's using. And what we do is we allow the third party to do that, to be able to essentially have access to Auth Hero in a functional way. You can log into a dashboard, but you can't log into the patient information until you've verified your identity. We also do our own verification with business licensing, who the owner is and such like that, so that there aren't fake clinics, there aren't fake employees being built. We've kind of parsed it from third-party verification and personal party verification. But when you start to scale to more and more customers, the third-party verification becomes a way to accelerate that process so that we can kind of scale into that with time.
Thank you. And we were talking a little bit about AI. So how much AI is right now built in this platform, and how are you looking at it from future roadmap point of view, that how AI and
Yeah, that's
can
the most fun
execute
question.
execution, building
That is
our
the
custom-
most fun question, man. So AI is like everyone's most exciting thing right now, right? There's so much potential in AI. And if you're not looking at AI, you're doing yourself a disservice. But you're also doing yourself a disservice if you're looking too much into AI. And when we see all the trillions of dollars being dumped into AI and it not returning in value in the United States healthcare sector and beyond, that's where you're saying the objective evidence means something's wrong. Okay.
Right.
And right now we are operating with 0% AI because we're building the foundation for AI. And if we start off with AI, not only are we taking on a bunch of costs with running GPUs, and most of my devs have a master's in AI, so it's part of our roadmap, 100%. But the truth is, if you're looking at AI this early, you're overcomplicating trying to get to a customer and define what value you're providing. And if you keep it nice and simple with automations, you can build that infrastructure to build the database that will train your AI. Now, when you look into where AI should be, okay, that's a different conversation. But at its most fundamental and simple point, I believe in human in the loop, especially in healthcare. Okay. We
Especially.
cannot take the human out of medicine. And that is 100% something I see within the clinic. No one wants to be, go to an urgent care telehealth and talk to ChatGPT, right? They want to talk to a person who understands them, who understands their values, who understands their culture. And we want to be able to say, like, are we tackling social determinants of health and stuff like that? And that's where I would like AI to go, to being able to combat social determinants of health.
Right, absolutely. Sounds great. And I think we are about time, but I have last two, and in my opinion, they're the most important question. So where are you looking yourself in next 3 to 5 years? What is the vision? What is the roadmap? Where you want to go in next 3 to 5 years with this product?
Yeah, that's a great question. We can hypothesize that Auth Hero will be running its pilots next early Q1 and Q2 of 2026. We will be tackling the workers' compensation and scaling out from Sacramento and beyond, and that's where I'm coming out of, Sacramento, California, and moving into workers' comp within other states, and then that's horizontal scaling, and then we want to vertically scale into primary care, Department of Defense, the VA, Medicare, and so on. And we want to tackle that administrative friction, because if we really want to help healthcare, we have to get it organized, and we have to get it organized, taking everyone's pain points and not playing the game of the insurance is the bad guy, the clinic is the bad guy, the employer is the bad guy. We have to put everyone at the table. And that's our goal, is to create within the next 3 to 5 years, a place where everyone can get to the table and their voice can be heard and their pain points can be solved.
Awesome. That's great. Thank you. And the last question, if you have to give one advice to someone who is listening to you and they are thinking about building their own next healthcare product, based on your experience, what that advice would be?
Great question. I would say fall in love with the problem and not the solution.
Yes. very powerful.
It works well for me and it works well for our team. And you constantly
Right.
have to remind yourself of that because you just fall in love with building a solution so easily. But when you start to get into the customer's eyes and you start to get into what's wrong with what the problem you're trying to solve is, you get more clarity. You It's something that can be said, but experiencing that is a little different. But that's 100% where I would leave that.
I think I can resonate with that. That if you are just thinking about solution, then you are maybe thinking about technical fixes, which technologies to use, how to fix it technically. But yes, when you are involved in the problem, you actually understand the pain point, and technology may become secondary part of what you are trying to accomplish. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for sharing
Of
your
course, man.
wisdom.
Thank you.
Any questions you have for me, please feel free to ask.
No, I just want to say I love what you're doing. I love the direction of this podcast. I've enjoyed the ones that I've seen in the past, and I'm excited to see more. You're doing good, and keep doing this. Please, we need a place to have these conversations.
Absolutely. And of course, we will, the dream is that we will build it as a network as well for
Cool.
people to make an impact. And of course, help each other. And definitely, the big challenge in healthcare is awareness. And it's other than technical aspects, there are a lot of many challenges which we can accomplish together. So thank you so much for your time. I really loved talking to you, and I really wish you all the best
Thank you.
with this product.
It was my pleasure, and I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you so much. Okay.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You
Bye
too.
bye.
Bye now.